Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into how one brand completely transformed a market, turning a daily commodity into a premium experience. We're going to crack the code on Blue Tokai coffee roasters.
Okay, so let's just start with the huge, gigantic problem staring them in the face. For literally decades, coffee in India meant one thing: instant. It was cheap, it was fast, so if you're trying to sell premium, freshly roasted beans, you're not just launching a new product, you're fighting an entire culture. How on earth do you convince millions of people to completely change a daily habit?
And this is where our story really kicks off. One brand, Blue Tokai, didn't just dip its toe in the market. They went ahead and completely redefined it. They figured out the secret formula to make specialty coffee not just a niche product, but a massive success.
So, how'd they pull it off? Well, it wasn't just one magic trick. It was a super smart, multi-layered strategy. We're going to deconstruct their entire playbook piece by piece and look at every single challenge they had and the brilliant solution they came up with for each one.
First things first, the biggest mountain they had to climb was the mindset of the market. I mean, think about it. When your customer thinks coffee should cost next to nothing and take 5 seconds to make, how do you convince them to pay way more for something they have to grind and brew themselves? It's a tough sell. Their solution? It was simple but absolutely genius. They became teachers. Instead of just selling a bag of coffee, they sold the story of coffee. On their packaging, they didn't just say Indian coffee. Nope. They told you about the specific farm it came from, the name of the farmer, the exact tasting notes you could expect, like cherry or caramel. They taught you why a roast date is way more important than an expiry date, and they showed you how different brewing methods could totally change the taste. Suddenly, it wasn't just a drink, it was a hobby. Okay, so you've got people interested. They believe your coffee is something special. Now you've got a whole new problem, right? An operational one. How do you make sure that every single customer gets that super fresh experience you promised? And, maybe even more important, how do you build a real, lasting relationship with them?
This is where their direct-to-consumer or D2C engine comes in, and it's so smart. By selling straight from their own website, they controlled everything. They could roast the beans after you ordered, meaning the coffee that showed up at your door was as fresh as it gets. They made it easy to keep buying with subscriptions, locking in that loyalty, and this is the real kicker, they owned all the customer data. They knew exactly what you liked, so they could create better products and send you offers you actually wanted. But, a website can only do so much. You can write the most beautiful, tempting description of a coffee, but at the end of the day, it's all about the taste. So how do you get someone who's a little skeptical to take that first, potentially expensive sip?
And this is where they created the perfect loop. Their physical cafes became the discovery engine. You could walk in, try an incredible cup of coffee for a pretty low price, and just get a feel for the brand. Once you were hooked, bam! The D2C loyalty engine takes over. You go online and buy a bag of the beans you just tried, or maybe even sign up for a subscription. It's this beautiful, powerful one-two punch that gets new customers in the door and then keeps them for the long haul.
So, the system is working. People are trying the coffee and loving it. But you still have to deal with that big question mark hanging over the price tag on a full bag of beans. You still need a really good answer when the customer asks, okay, but why is this worth so much more than what I normally buy?
And their answer was radical transparency. They didn't just tell you the coffee was good, they showed you why. They put the name of the exact farm on the bag, they introduced you to the farmers they worked with directly, they made their ethical, direct trade sourcing a huge part of their brand. This wasn't just slick marketing. This was about building trust. It made the higher price feel less like an expense and more like a fair investment in quality and ethics.
All right, so the model is a hit. The brand is on fire. What's the final boss level? Scaling. How do you take this successful local model and roll it out across a massive, incredibly diverse country, and do it fast without going broke? Well, they didn't leave it to chance. They built a repeatable, 4-step playbook. It's brilliant. Step 1. Open a cafe in a new city. Think of it like planting a flag, creating a little hub for the brand. Step 2. Hammer that specific neighborhood with targeted online ads, driving D2C sales. Step 3. Once the brand is known, expand into wholesale, getting their coffee into the coolest offices and hotels in the area. And finally, Step 4. Go wide with retail distribution. It's just a really smart, methodical way to win one market at a time. So, we've looked at all the individual pieces of the puzzle. Now let's step back, put it all together, and really understand the core logic of why this entire system just works so well. It really boils down to this incredible synergy. The education part creates the desire and gives you a reason to pay more. The D2C channel delivers on the promise of amazing quality and keeps you coming back. And the cafes? They're the perfect, low-cost try-before-you-buy machine that feeds the whole system. Every single part makes the other parts stronger.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway for you? Because this is more than just a cool story about coffee. The Blue Tokai strategy is packed with clear, actionable tactics that pretty much any premium brand could learn from.
So here's your playbook. First off, don't just sell, educate. Tell the story behind your product. Second, use physical experiences as a marketing engine. Maybe it's not a cafe, maybe it's a pop-up or an event, but use it to drive your online sales. Third, make it ridiculously easy for people to buy again with subscriptions or starter kits. And finally, if you have a great sourcing story, if you're doing things the right way, shout it from the rooftops. That's how you build trust and earn that premium price.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. Blue Tokai looked at a simple commodity, instant coffee, and found a way to elevate it into a craft experience. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what's the instant coffee in your industry? What everyday product or service is just sitting there, waiting for someone with the right story to turn it into something special?